All right, hello, Computer Studies 10. We're going to be adding some new fonts to our websites. You already know how to change the font of your various kinds of text in the terms of the CSS code, but we're limited to the kind of fonts we can use. Even if you have some cool fonts installed on your computer, the way the web browser works is that it depends on the fonts that are installed on your local machine. So if someone is viewing your web page on a different machine than you have, they might not have the same fonts as you, and therefore they can't see the way you've designed your page. So it turns out that Google, as one of the most expensive web companies in the world, has come up with a solution for this. They have a vested interest in making the web beautiful, since that's where all their money comes from. So they have created this great font store called Google Fonts. The website address is fonts.google.com, and if you go there, you can see just tons and tons of cool fonts. And what's really cool about this is they host them online, so if you use this font, everybody can also see it because it's not hosted on your machine. It's not a local font you've installed. So there's so many benefits to that. So we'll see how we're going to do this. First step is we're going to take a look at what kind of fonts are available and understand the definitions of the different kinds of fonts. And then I'll show you how you can use Google Fonts to get the code you need in order to embed these fonts into your website. All right, so first off, there's so many different kind of fonts here. You can just search if you want to just type in words and search for different things like military. See, whoa, this is some weird dingbat type fonts, but you can see some interesting sort of things come up. But mostly you will search through just the different categories. So there are 5 different categories of fonts. I'll just explain each one quickly, and we'll see the deal. So we'll start with serif fonts. The word serif is a word to describe the little decorations that are on the end of the characters of certain kinds of fonts, the serif fonts. These are originally put in old times, like back when we had printing presses to print out things like newspapers and stuff like that. We're talking like hundreds of years old. And they were put there to make the letters more distinct. The way the ink would press on the page made it kind of hard to see otherwise. So these little serifs, these decorations, became part of many famous font faces. You could probably think of it for yourself, like Times New Roman. Kind of looks like this. So those fonts kind of have a bit of an old-fashioned vibe to them, or an academic vibe is another way you can kind of think of them. The kind of thing you might write an essay in or read a scientific journal in. They also have a bit of a classy vibe, right? Like an old-fashioned vibe. So if you're kind of going for something along those lines, a serif font might be right for you. So next is sans serifs. Sans means without in French, so this is without serifs. And these are more modern fonts. Turns out that those serifs, those little decorations, don't actually make things easier to read on a screen. They're easier to read on a page, so a lot of novels and newspapers and such are published in serif fonts. But on a screen, the sans serif is actually more readable. So we see these kind of fonts used often when you want to present something that's very clean, very streamlined, minimalist, or just modern, something that looks 21st century. So sans serif fonts are great for those purposes. Next are display fonts. Display fonts, there's so much variety. There's all sorts of different kinds. The thing that unites all the display fonts is they're designed for big text. Things like headers, your H1s, your H2s. There's all sorts of different vibes, but they're great for big, bold text. You wouldn't want to use these for like a paragraph or a list, for example, but they might be interesting for big, bold heading at the top of your page. Yeah, so take a look at these and see what you can find, maybe for your H1s and other headers. Next is handwriting fonts. You probably can guess what they look like. There's all sorts of variety, though. Over here we can see dancing script looks very classy, very sophisticated. You might see this on like a wedding invitation or like maybe the menu of a fancy French restaurant or something. And over on the other side we have indie flower. It looks like a kid maybe wrote this. It's got a bit of a cute vibe or a fun vibe to it. So you can get kind of different ideas and different vibes coming from your fonts from handwriting. anything from classy to cute and playful. And if you scroll down, there's all sorts of things in between as well. You know, so take a look and see if there's something you might find for those purposes. Last but not least, we have the monospace fonts. And monospace are fonts that, if I zoom in to any particular one of these fonts, their uniting feature is that each letter takes up the same amount of horizontal space. So an A and an L and an M are all the same width. And that's useful for a number of purposes, mostly for things like programming languages. People like the letters to line up, so when they're programming in code, they're almost always, actually universally, monospace fonts. And also like old-fashioned typewriters are often monospace fonts. You'll see a lot of monospace fonts in old video games too, and even sort of modern video games. So they have this weird positioning of being sort of like technology related, so things like code and video games, but also kind of old-fashioned too, things like typewriters and that kind of vibe. So you could almost see this type of font here. You can see that in like a mystery novel or something, written up on a typewriter. But if we scroll far enough, we get some definitely looks more futuristic here. This is the kind of thing you might see in a video game. You can find the kind of the 8-bit video game fonts here too. Yeah, like this one here. Look at that. That's like totally the kind of thing you might expect to see in a video game, especially an old-fashioned one. So lots of kind of different possibilities there. All right, so there you go. These are our different, categories of fonts. So now I'm going to show you how you can embed these fonts into your web page. And it turns out it's super easy because Google basically provides the code for you. So what we're going to do is we're just going to find some fonts we want. We'll click on them almost like we're shopping on Amazon, just like fill up our cart with these different fonts, and then we'll go to this screen over here. This little see these 3 squares and a plus sign. If you click here, we don't have anything selected yet. But once we do, it'll show us all the different selected fonts. We can remove some if we don't like them all, and then we can get the code that will allow us to embed. So I'll pick a few. I'm going to go with this fun VT323 font. It looks very video gamey. So I'll go inside. You can experiment with it a bit more. You can cut and paste some of your own text just to see how it'll look. And you can see all the different characters that it supports. So that's fun to see and possibly useful. Sometimes maybe you need a particular character and it won't support it. So you can find that information here. So I'll click select this style, and you can see that it goes up into my little shopping cart. I could right now just grab my code and run if I wanted to, but I'm going to go get another font for my headers. So I'll go back to, let's go back, I guess. I'll go get a display font, and let's see what would look cool. This is a really big one here. That looks awesome. Actually, it's a little too awesome. Maybe I'll go with yeah. Okay. It's just a demonstration. I'll just go with whatever. So here's Patois 1. So I'll select this style as well. So I'm happy now. I want to go try these fonts out. So I can click on this, and I can see here's my fonts that I've selected. I can remove them if I've picked a few that I changed my mind on. And if you scroll down into the code down here, you can see that we have these 2 link tags. These are going to go into the head section of your HTML file, and they will link your document to Google's online font repository. At the bottom, we can see we have some CSS rules. There are font family CSS rules, so this is where I can put these particular rules to enforce those fonts in my CSS. So I'll do it right now with you, and you can see the result. So first of all, I'll copy and paste the link stuff here. I'll copy them over to my HTML document. I have mine ready to go right here. So again, they just go inside of the head. So I paste them in, and it didn't indent properly. Also, I'm very zoomed in, so it'll look a little different on yours. But yeah, you can see I have actually 3 different links, and that's fine. You can have many links. There's no problem there. So I've now linked to Google's font repository, And I'm going to go to my theme.css and I'll bring over some of those font rules. So we'll go back to the website. So Patua 1 is the big bold display font. So I'll copy that and I'll paste that into my H1. So my rules for H1 right now, I don't have any font specified, so I'll just stick that here. And then I want for my text, like my paragraphs and stuff, I want to use the 8-bit one, the VT323. So I'll copy this over, this piece of the CSS, and I'll put that into my paragraph and UL rules. So I'll save that. So if I go and look at my web page now, I'm going to expect my H1s to use the Patua 1 font, and my paragraphs and lists to use the VT323 font. So let's see if that actually happened. I'll go over to my Technology Terms website. So this is what it looked like before. So I'll press F5 to refresh. And yeah, look at that, it worked. So I'm just recording a video right now, thank you. So we have ourselves our Pathway 1, it worked nicely. But notice that the font size has actually changed. So interestingly enough, fonts are different sizes. So you might have to adjust your font size numbers as well in order to get this working correctly. Down here you can see that this font works as well. And it's also quite small compared to what it was before. So I might want to adjust my sizes and stuff. So it's a little bit work to do even after you've got Google to do a bunch of work for you. So you can just go over and try those out, different numbers, and see how that works for you. Anyways, I'll leave you to think about those things. So now you've unlocked a new skill. You'll be able to embed all sorts of different fonts and create different vibes for your website through the fonts you choose. So a very important part of web design. Okay, thanks CS10. We'll see you soon.